Despite some steps to address complaints over the racial climate at Boston Latin schools, some community leaders are pressing new demands. They recently asked for Latin's headmaster to possibly be replaced, and they took that demand to the office of Boston School Superintendent Tommy Chang. Two of those leaders were with us tonight. We'd like to welcome the founder of the New Democracy Coalition, Kevin Peterson, and the president and CEO of the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts, Darnell Williams. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Good to be here.
Chris.
Yeah.
I want to start with Kevin Peterson. This is still under investigation. Why not wait until we know some more before making a demand like getting rid of the headmaster?
Well, because for some, especially me, the climate at Boston Latin School is clear. There were certain demands required of the leadership at the school that clearly weren't met, and some of the frustration had been expressed by two Boston City councilors who have continued to express how disappointed they are about the climate. So I think that while there are long-term fixes that are in order that will come after this investigation, there are also some short-term fixes, and that includes requiring leadership change over at the school.
No, Williams, a lot of the complaints here have to do with comments made on social media, and people our age, we sometimes think that's out in the internet somewhere. It's not in
the clouds.
3D reality in your face. But if you're a student and you're part of the loop in this, what does it feel like?
Well, I think the only portion that I would probably modify that is that there were not only statements in the social media as well as what was heard in their presence while they were at school. And so what they ended up doing was making copies of what was on social media, created a binder, and took it to the headmaster. And as a result of 16 months later, nothing had transpired. But as a result of having somebody calling you the N-word in your hearing creates a hostile environment. It impacts your learning curve. And so for me, as an African-American male, and these two young ladies, that tells me that we need to protect them, and you need to stand up and show them that they have some backing. So it does have an impact, whether social media or in my hearing.
Kevin, explain the difference, because when I was a kid going Latin, there were things, if I was going to Hyde Park on a bus with just white kids, there were some things I would hear that no black student would hear. Mm-hmm. Social media, everybody hears it, or everybody can read it.
Yeah, it's out there, and it never goes away. So it always can be referred to if you just go back in the memory of whatever social application that you're using. So it is different from just in passing being called the N-word in the hall or on the street. That epithet in that context lives on social media forever, and is, I would imagine, ever impactful to the young people who engage in that media and who are part of those conversation threads.
Now, Williams, what we're also seeing here overlapping with this, the Boston Globe brought this to our attention recently, is that black enrollment at Boston Latin, unlike at Boston Latin Academy, is down sharply.
Oh, very significantly. And I think that what we are trying to do, and I believe the folks who brought that to the attention was BEAM, Black Education Alliance of Massachusetts. And so they have been doing this work very stridently. So we have an opportunity to work with them and to interface with the administration on the school side to make sure that what do we need to do to reverse that. There are some mandates in place that have not necessarily been adhered to. And so are we going backwards where we will not see teachers of color, where they can influence and understand the cultural competencies that are needed in order for those students. So there's a lot at stake here, and our job is to hold the mayor, hold Superintendent Chang accountable, as well as the school committee, that these things do not be taken lightly.
Kevin, what about steps you'd like to see?
Well, to Darnell's point, I think that it's important that the ratio of teachers of color, particularly black teachers at Boston Latin, reflect the diversity of the city. The city is under a consent decree where 25% of teachers across the system must be African American. They're out of compliance. So I would say that's another significant step that can be made post this investigation. I also think that we need to look at the anti-bullying statute that's currently in place. And ensure that well, it should be strengthened, but ensure that it be enforced across the, not only at Boston Latin School, but across the school community. And we also need to look at how we ensure that the elementary schools within the system, the students in those schools have an enhanced chance of after participating in the exam, an enhanced chance of attending Boston Latin School. I think that will increase some of the diversity at the school that is now lacking.
Darnell, what about a channel for complaints? Because if you're a student, you're exposed to this. The students have been working on this for months.
16, to my knowledge.
Yeah. And the sense is that if there was somebody in the school you could go to who would not only be sympathetic, but they would be able to get the ear of the top administrators.
Well, I think what that raises for me is we've got two issues here. One, there's no defined ombudsman that you can go to that's going to deal with these issues and deal with it in a time frame that's timely and responsive. And the second part of that question is that I'm just baffled that there is no policy in place for if an administrator does not do his or her job, that there are no progressive steps of discipline that are in place that says, well, if you don't do this, you're not protecting these children, you're not creating a safe environment, but there are no repercussions if you don't do it. So those are two things simultaneously, ombudsman and protocols, and that's what we're going to be pushing for. And at the end of this investigation, we want to see some type of metrics in place as to what should happen to the individuals involved in this scenario, and then what's happening across the district.
Kevin, talk about how important Boston Latin is as far as setting a tone for the rest. Because a lot of people say this school is not an average school, so why does it matter?
Well, it's one of the city's prized public institutions, and historically one of the country's most important institutions in terms of setting the pace for public education. So if we can't fix what's broken in something that has valued history and that we value even contemporarily, then we're in trouble. And Boston Latin, the alumni graduated from that school and set the tone and the culture of the city. So if we're looking to raise another generation of leaders, particularly a diverse cohort of leaders, then we have to fix a prized institution like Boston Latin School.
Thank you both very much for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
Kevin Peterson and Darnell Williams.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Up ahead, the art segment with Chris Harding.